Good afternoon,
Hey.
Mr. President. What has President Zelensky told you about the big counteroffensive? And maybe you can start by telling us whether it's actually underway or not. And I'd like to ask you about the F-16s. You've greenlit them now. Jake Sullivan said arms and equipment go to Ukraine according to what he called the exigencies of the conflict. So what exigency now exists that didn't exist that demands these planes?
Well, I'll tell you exactly when they're going to move, exactly where they're going to go. He told me, come on, God love you. I'm going to, even if I knew precisely, you think I'm going to tell you what they're going to do in terms of their offensive? Well, I hope you hope I wouldn't do that, because that would mean it wouldn't succeed. But the fact is that we did discuss privately I did discuss with Zelensky let me put it this way. We and our NATO allies know how many brigades they have trained, know what the status of those brigades are, and have an expectation as to what their likelihood of succeeding are. We don't know that for certain. War is uncertain. War is uncertain, to state the obvious. So, and it will proceed. I can't, even if I think I do know, but I'm not going to tell you, because that would not be a smart thing to do either. So having said that, the expectation and hope is that they will be successful in that it'll make it clear to Russia that the cost, for example, Bakhmut. Bakhmut is a discussion about whether or not it's been lost or whatever. And well, the truth of the matter is the Russians have suffered over 100,000 casualties in Bakhmut. It's hard to make up. It's hard to make up. So whether or not there are troops in Bakhmut occupying, there's not many buildings left standing in Bakhmut. It's a pretty devastated city. But they have been able to move in a direction that they've been able to lock down an awful lot of the Russian forces, including the Wagner group. So with regard to the F-16s, F-16s would not have helped in that regard at all. It was unnecessary. For example, let's take just Bakhmut, for example. Would not have any additional added consequence. But what's happened is, since the provision of everything from the significant missile defense systems, tanks, sophisticated tanks, and the like, all the things that were of consequence in the near term in the Donbass area and where the fighting was taking place, they now have all that equipment. There's a little bit still coming, but have all that equipment. What's going to happen, though, is if they continue to do well, they're going to be in a situation where you're going to have the Russians being able to stand off at a greater distance from maintaining their headquarters and other things which are out of range of certain of the existing capacity they have. And they have to be able to be in a position where now those fighter jets, those F-16s, make a big difference in terms of being able to deal with what is coming down the road. And God willing, and we don't know this, if they're successful and there ends up being an accommodation where there is not a ceasefire, but there is a peace agreement that gets worked out, that they'll have the capacity to have confidence in their ability to resist response by the Russians if they were to change their position. So that's the essence of the difference. Was there another part of the question? No, not the percent. I don't expect the F-16s to take part in the existing, let's assume that it's not, but let's assume tomorrow the offensive was started, or in a week or 2 or 5 or 7 or 10. It's not highly unlikely they would take place in that context, but it will take place in the context if they're successful in the near term. They're going to then continue to have to fight with the Russians who have headquarters beyond where they are now not able to reach by the existing capacity that exists in their arsenal. So it's a different need, just like the tanks weren't needed in the beginning, but they're needed now. And so that's the nature of the change.
What assurances do you have that providing F-16s won't escalate this war?
I have a flat assurance from Zelensky that they will not use it to go on and move into Russian geographic territory. But wherever Russian troops are within Ukraine in the area, they would be able to do that. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.